Welcome to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't, a podcast dedicated to helping you create the relationship you truly want.
Feelings Unleashed, Understanding and Harnessing Emotions. Or, my subtitle, I Don't Know How to Feel, But I Want to Try, from Barbie the movie. Emotions are messy and confusing. They can so easily take us for a ride. Loneliness can carry us into bad relationships. Our fears can keep us isolated and prevent understanding others. Our shame can ruthlessly feed self-doubt and self-torture. Our resentments and unspoken anger can keep us stuck. We are unable to communicate decently if we don't have emotional balance. What to do about this difficult business of emotions? The first step in understanding emotions is to identify them. So many of us lack a feeling word vocabulary that I've got 2 pages you can print out on the emotions page of my website, therapyideas.net. Print them out and select 4 or 5 words that fit how you are feeling. Get comfortable with an emotional vocabulary. Even better, if you have a partner to share them with, do so. Research shows that naming our feelings makes us happier. In 2018, UCLA professor Matthew Lieberman found putting feelings into words reduces the intensity of feelings because it activates the prefrontal lobe and decreases the amygdala. So, the beginning of improving your emotional balance is identifying and then practice sharing. This leads to moving through a range of feelings. Movement is mentally healthy. Feelings are not invested in lingering unless you ignore them and pretend they aren't there. The other extreme would be obsessing about feelings so much you spiral and fail to take any action. Feelings deserve the messy middle ground in between these 2 extremes, which would be to lean into them for a bit, then back up for a wider perspective that includes the other person. When you lean in, you explore a bit any wants lying around inside the feeling, any hurt you need to let somebody else know, any unfinished business hanging around. With unfinished business, it can help to write an unedited letter you don't need to send, but you want to use it to explore what's there. And I just read a research that said handwriting is more of a flow and energy than typing. And that is why today's episode was written by myself first. And then I asked my husband to type it up. You also can ask yourself, what is the opposite of this feeling I'm not paying attention to? For example, often fear erases its opposite polarity, which is stop right now and try to imagine what's the opposite of fear. What might it be? Often, the opposite of fear is excitement. Fear squelches our sense of adventure. Excitement helps us leap over the scary beginnings of something new. The opposite of feelings are one of my favorite things to ponder. Let's take another negative feeling, anger. Think of something you have no ability to change. Oftentimes, the opposite of anger is acceptance, accepting our powerlessness. The purpose of boredom is to push us into its opposite, which is creativity. There isn't one right answer of what is the opposite. There is only your answer. Often, when I ask this question, clients will look at me blankly. This question creates a pause to the feeling. The third step is to be able to interrupt the high-intensity path so many feelings pursue. The pause, as you've heard in so many of my interviews recently this year, it's crucial to greater emotional balance. The pause offers you a chance to think, and thinking about your feelings can contribute to balance. We can manage our own reactivity by thinking differently about the problem. When we overreact, we dump out a lot of garbage. Why is that? But everybody does it. We say a lot of our unsaid, secret, ugly thoughts. The pause engages your prefrontal cortex, our grown-up balance to our lizard brain, the amygdala. If you can't even begin to think how to pause, then try wearing a rubber band on your wrist and snap it to remind yourself to pause. Take 10 breaths, breathing through your nose and out through your mouth. A pause will help you prevent attacking by reacting. Attacking is using more anger than you need, and attacking is most often aimed when it's below the belt. When fear is a primary emotion, it is often determined to cover up anger because your fear doesn't like the messiness that anger creates. This is why so many people back away from friendships, because being annoyed and not saying anything becomes the way to avoid more messiness, when in reality, these are opportunities to practice small moments of genuineness, which will deepen the relationship and teach you to tolerate the messiness of both people's differences in a relationship. And respecting those differences is what hinges on relationships' success. When we react, we are working backwards, focused only on our own hurt and upset, back to ourselves. It becomes almost impossible to recognize the other person's true intention. I learned from my dear friend and colleague when I was sharing a personal dilemma that an excellent question to ask someone else in these moments, instead of reacting, is, can you help me understand? Can you help me understand? Then you are working outwards, which incorporates the other person into what the problem is. It's so easy to lose perspective of both people involved. We all love a bit of self-righteousness, don't we? Let's explore anger, because that is a core part of reacting so quickly to stay on top of whatever the mess is that's going on. Many families squelch anger because it's not nice, or they dump it like the Christmas scene in the TV show The Bear in the second season. More on this show at the end of this episode. So anger is treated like a second cousin to fear. You can't really be self-aware unless you understand your relationship to anger. Pain has anger wrapped around it, either covertly or overtly. Let me say this again. It's that important. Pain has anger wrapped around it, either covertly or overtly. Consider the profound pain locked inside divorce or death. There is a huge amount of anger that also needs to be unlocked. Passive aggressive is when anger leaves the other person really uncomfortable and confused. Being passive aggressive is when someone is really super defended against messy anger. So, understanding and owning your anger is key to success with your emotions. Making choices about how to handle your anger instead of knee-jerk swallowing it and stashing it for future use in a giant dump or spilling it all over others by reacting. The fourth step is considering the purpose of emotions. There is meaning and purpose that in the heat of the moment we so easily lose track of. So let's explore some ideas about purpose. Why, for example, is anger in the toolbox of emotions? Most people stereotype anger as merely being ugly, but anger is a way to bring you back to yourself, to help you hang on to how you are different and unique. This is why so many adolescents are so busy exploring their anger. It's such an important time of growing up. Anger contributes to your liveliness and vitality. Think about how anger can give you energy. Guilt is like a compass. It helps orient you. It's important to recognize obligation, which helps you make a reasonable sacrifice to do the right thing, even when it's hard. When you are swimming in guilt, it often means you're really angry and resentful because you feel locked into doing an unreasonable amount of sacrifice. So I'm making a distinction with guilt on reasonable sacrifice and true resentment when there's an unreasonable amount of sacrifice. The feeling of being responsible is the ability to respond. It's best if we can be open to responding in any way that is either life-enhancing or relationship-enhancing. Gratitude. We all know that being grateful extends our lifetime, according to research. But it's a feeling of enough. It's a delicious feeling of enough, something we Americans too easily lose track of. Betty LaVette has a powerful song, I do not want what I haven't got, that I actually do want played at my funeral. It's so beautiful. The feelings for wanting sex and desire have the purpose of pleasure. Again, in America, we seem to get stuck in the extremes of too much or too little. And pleasure is such an important thing to seek out. The reason for sadness is to help us digest loss and to make suffering more bearable. It reminds us of our aloneness. Sadness teaches us to be small and humble about our very small, tiny part in the universe. Pride teaches us to be bigger and to take up more room. This is why I like the term quiet dignity. People that have it, it's such a lovely quality. Courage helps us stand up and be counted. Courage makes our world bigger, so we explore and adventure. Fear reminds us of danger. How many times have you shouted at the TV, like me, because some idiot is going to be hurt because they go it alone and don't wait for backup? Loving requires courage, and because of our fear, we are all too often silent about loving someone. Loving teaches us to connect from small, cute ways, like my friend Jim, who is an expert at doing this with everyone he meets, which makes so many people feel seen. It's such a gift that he has. There is also including the deeper level of intimacy, asking and answering questions that share the hard parts without sidestepping the messiness of vulnerability. Jealousy. Jealousy can be pinpricks of what we want, clues to a more interesting life. Too much jealousy can turn into the ugliness of possessiveness. Resentments are so often silently collected and stashed. Then we so easily cash them in a very entitled, often dramatic dump. Resentfulness is to feel something again and again. We nurture the feeling like a possession, which is more comfortable than sharing a hard truth with somebody else because we're afraid of what might happen. Joy is the experience of freeing yourself. We just saw the play Fat Ham, which is an expression of pure joy that had the entire audience up on its feet, singing, clapping, and wishing there was room to dance. A terrific Black queer version of Hamlet that rocks. When you forgive yourself, you forgive others. Forgiveness is unlikely to happen if you haven't blamed first. Shame helps you dig a hole into misery, or you can embrace it and learn from it. And certainly, the previous episode, number 120, is all about shame. A great interview I encourage you to listen to. Depression. Depression constricts our excitement. The hopelessness of depression can protect you from disappointment. Curiosity can be a bridge to begin to leave depression and disappointment behind. The Buddhists define 3 poisons: hatred, which is to be balanced with kindness; greed, which is grasping and needs to be balanced with generosity; delusion, which is ignorance and lack of attention. One example of this last one would be the fantasy of porn daily and no sex life with your partner. It is a dangerous delusion because it takes away from the relationship. Wisdom, which is recognizing that reality matters, and face the hard truth about yourself and your negative impact on your relationship. 5th step. So the secret to emotions is to face them head on, be alive to them, but not controlled by them. This requires what I call emotional bravery. Instead of avoiding them, explore and be curious. Chew them over and spit out the unworthy parts. I believe that it is insecurities that rob us of our emotional bravery. Our insecurities can be influenced by others. I remember sitting with my dad in the front seat of his electrician's work truck, which he owned, and told me that life is not a bowl of cherries, Rhoda. I think he thought I was just too excited about something. So it's such a vivid moment in my head. My favorite therapist, Sonia, offered me this balance. Greediness can be a fine appetite for life, which restored my natural zest for life. A nurturing moment from her that I've never forgotten. Lucky me. So balance your insecurities with learning to be more grounded by understanding your feelings, which helps build your identity and helps you sort out what really matters to you. We are all fingerprints, unique in who we are and what makes us tick. Feelings can lead the way. And feelings can be so exaggerated, you can get lost in them. 6th step. Don't rob yourself of confusion. We all love the comfort of certainty, and yet uncertainty is the biggest part of life. Confusion is something to be appreciated and enjoyed because growth can only occur in confusion. Certainty doesn't lead to change. When you're certain you're right, there's no reason to examine what you're thinking or feeling. So enjoy confusion more. Stay with it instead of shutting it down, and it will lead to change. You have to tolerate confusion. An obsession is not what I'm talking about here. That's a substitute for action, and it's not the same thing as confusion. We are not transformed by new knowledge, but by a new knowing in a different way. We are not transformed by new knowledge. Instead, we need a new knowing in a different way. People who learn well are willing to be awkward and to carry their fear and discomfort with some grace. You have to support your own unease and being uncomfortable. Anxiety is not accepting uncertainty as a reality of life. Laura Pearls, when leading a training group in 1984, said, "We place our bets and make choices about the maybes of life." We place our bets and make choices about the maybes of life. Embracing Uncertainty by Anne Catherine with a K in her last name is a terrific book to help you make uncertainty more bearable. Life requires a hell of a lot of uncertainty. I want to use the last episode of Season 2 of The Bear to give some examples of things I've talked about today. I kept this last, it'll be after the homework, because many of you may not have had the opportunity to watch it. So this part of the episode will be after homework. Your homework. Stay curious and open to feelings. When we are defensive, we jump so early into feeling rejected. Defensiveness interrupts what we can learn. Try to avoid rejection sensitivity. Go to your kids and ask for 2 ways you could be a better parent. Go to your supervisor and ask for 2 ways you could be a better employee. Go to your partner and ask for 2 ways you could be a better person for them. Don't forget to print out the vocabulary list and use it. In 1980, when I was working with incest victims and learning from them what was needed, I developed a technique of feelings, 1 each on a stack of index cards. And I asked people to pick out a few to fit how they were feeling. It proved incredibly helpful, and I actually patented it and then never did anything with it. The Bear on Hulu in the States is a masterclass in our humanity and our messiness with emotions. When Richie tells Carmi he is like his mother, it throws Carmi over the cliff. He ends up drowning in shame and self-hatred, which leads to tremendous collateral damage with his girlfriend. Sydney, the perfectionist, doesn't ask for help and ends up throwing up from stuffing in all her feelings. Productive perfectionists will stuff their anger. Carmi is truly confused that he has a girlfriend until Sydney helps him identify she is more than a friend who is a girl. Confusion in that moment is such a good thing because it leaves Carmi open to change and thinking of her as being even more special, which of course she truly is. Last but not least, Sugar's husband, clearly in so much pain when he's asked to keep the secret that his mentally ill mother-in-law, Jamie Lee Curtis, showed up. Secrets benefit the person who wants the secret, not anybody else. This show is a buffet of emotions, and much can be learned from these beloved characters who have captured reality so beautifully. It is one of my all-time favorite shows, along with The Wire. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end. You can get my children's book that I wrote, and the pictures were drawn by my good friend Linda Wallen, Dancing with Your Lizard Brain, on Amazon. I really appreciate you guys, and I'm open to receiving messages, which you can do through my website if you have a topic you want me to cover.
Thank you for listening to What Healthy Couples Know That You Don't. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and help get the word out. To learn more or connect with Rhoda, visit therapyideas.net.